The Bears are making some big trades already. Free agency hasn't even started yet, but we're going to talk about that, what that might mean for the rest of free agency and the draft. That and more on this episode of the House Huddle Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the House Huddle Podcast. Here are your hosts.
The middle of the 15 to the 20, breaks free of the 25 to the 30, to the outside, 40, midfield, 40, 30 to the coast, 20, 15, Hester 5, touchdown Bears!
What's up, Palace Huddlers? This is a solo podcast, so quick offense, hurry up offense, no huddling up this time. The Chicago Bears are putting me to work at least right now. Justin and Bob and I have been communicating through text, but I didn't want this to go too long, right? Like the Chicago Bears are making some big moves already. Free agency is less than 2 weeks away. Legal tampering period, less than 2 weeks away. And they're already making some major moves. So before we get into that, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're new to the show, leave a comment. We love to continue the conversation in the comments. How do you feel about these two moves? Maybe I can sway your opinion, whether it's a positive one and I sway it negatively, or it's a negative one and I sway it positively. We'll see how that happens. But as always, I'm Rob Schwartz with Bear Goggles On. Let's dive into it. So on Monday, was it Monday? Gosh, my week is flying by already. I apologize. On Tuesday, Jonah Jackson. The Chicago Bears made a trade for Jonah Jackson. And at first, I was like, yeah, that seems like a pretty good move. I saw social media was all over it, both positive and negatively. Let's just kind of look at the pros and the cons. Okay, pros are, look, Jonah Jackson played with Ben Johnson in Detroit. Okay, he's coming from LA. The Rams signed him to a big 3-year contract, and it kind of didn't work out for them. Okay. It just did not work out for him. Some injuries kind of played a part with that. He only played in 4 games last year due to a shoulder injury and then a couple other injuries that took place at the end of the year. Started with camp last year. I believe it was like a strain, and then it ended up being a fracture. So he was out, like I said, for a long time, put on the IR, only played in 4 games. But he has familiarity. And I know some of you out there, like, we've seen this play out, right? We've seen this play out. We saw Lucas Patrick brought in for the Luke Getsy offense coming out of Green Bay. That looked like crap, didn't work out at all, right? We saw this with Shane Waldron. And gosh, now I'm just blanking. I should have wrote this down. We saw this with the Shane Waldron offense with Coleman Shelton, right? Things just did not work out. I will say Shelton wasn't that bad. Not bad at all. Here's the situation, though. Pro Bowler, and I will say it was an alternate, so I wouldn't give him like mad props, but he was a Pro Bowler in 2021. Johnson has had a good year with Detroit. Here's the downfall, okay? They gave up a 6th-round pick. I don't care about the 6th-round pick. I want to say it's somewhere between 2 and 3% of 6th-round picks see a second contract with the team that drafted them. So I'm not too concerned about a 6th-round pick being given up at all. What's funny is I believe, I didn't confirm this or not, but I believe that it was the Justin Fields pick that was actually in this draft trade scenario. We'll find out for sure once everything's official, but I believe that's to be the case. So is it really Justin Fields then for Jonah Jackson? How do you guys feel about that? Leave that in the comments. But okay, so 6th-round pick, not a big deal, whatever. The problem is it's a $17.5 million cap hit. Okay, so when I look at that, that's roughly $6 million less than what the Chiefs are going to be paying Trey Smith this year if he stays on that franchise tag. That's a little insane. I'm sorry, Jonah Jackson is nowhere near Trey Smith level. Even in that 2021 season, nowhere near Trey Smith level. Just not. So it'll be interesting to see how everything plays out. So on the surface, again, $17 million is rough. However, next year, he'll be due $17 million, or they could just cut him and have nothing, right? So owe him nothing. There's no guaranteed money for 2026. So if things don't work out this year, Chicago walks away with just having to pay a bunch of money to a guy that, look, they have plenty of cap space. Okay, so when that move was made, wasn't really too concerned. Now, yesterday, see, I'm already messing up my days here. Yesterday, the Chicago Bears trade a 2026 4th-round pick, so next year's 4th-round pick, not this year, next year's 4th-round pick, to the Kansas City Chiefs. Not for Trey Smith. Nope. That's who we all would have loved, right? But they get another pretty solid, I will say old, guard in Joe Thuney. Okay? Now, all reports are that Joe Thuney was one of the leaders on that offensive line and in the locker room and on the offense. So that will be something I think this team could really use. They haven't had a true leader on that offensive line, in my opinion, for quite some time. So that'll be good. I'd say Cody Whitehair at one point kind of led that locker or that unit as far as a leadership role goes. But then once age set in on him, he kind of went downhill really fast. Where Thuney is 32, going to be 33, but he is still playing at a very, very high level. Now, the problem with him, you got another $16 million in salary cap that's going to hit. So now the Bears went from over $70 million in cap space down to 45. Okay, that's a lot for 2 offensive guards. But you just changed up your whole interior of that offensive line within 2 moves. Thuney is a free agent in 2026. Rumors are that they'll probably extend him. If that's the case, they can knock that $16 million cap number down quite a bit if they want to backload it and use that space. Or because Caleb Williams is on a rookie deal, maybe they don't. But even on a rookie deal, look, he's going into year 2. If you give a 2-year extension, make it a 3-year deal for Thuney, that kind of lines up pretty well then for the Caleb Williams situation. So you got to get somebody in here. Guys, like we've been complaining that they don't have people to block. Without people to block, we saw 63 sacks, 68 sacks. I can't remember off the top of my head, but a lot of sacks last year. Caleb Williams needs to be able to have time in that pocket. And I know that there were many sacks that were on him. We have called him out for that here on this House Huddle podcast. But look, I mean, it's a very crazy situation. But now you have Thuney, you have Jonah Jackson. How's that going to work out, right? How's that going to work out? Because in reality, both are kind of left guards. Jonah Jackson has had 3,623 snaps at the left guard position, none at left tackle, none at right tackle. He's got 211 at right guard and 131 at center. Most of those came with the Rams. Thuney has 299 snaps at left tackle, 128 at center, which I was actually surprised to see that. 8 at right tackle, none at right guard. Look, Thuney's got 9,455 snaps at left guard. He is going to be your left guard. So it's going to be Braxton Jones, or if they try to replace him at left tackle, and Thuney on that left side. Who's going to play center? Is it going to be Drew Dahlman? Is it going to be Evan Brown? Josh Myers? Who knows? Okay, that's to be seen. I'd have to think Drew Dahlman's out of the picture with how much they just spent on these two guards. An interesting idea, though, could Jonah Jackson be that center? And I know he only had 131 snaps. And I know, look, we've seen this with the guys who are not true centers, right? And I would love to have a true center here in Chicago. But could that work if, and I'm throwing this out there, if Kevin Zeitler hits free agency and you can bring him in for 1-2 years on the very, very cheap, because he's at the end of his contract, right? Just a few million, $4 or $5 million per year contract. If you can bring him in, he's got 13,000 snaps at right guard. So could it be Thuney, Jonah Jackson, Zeitler, Darnell Wright? I mean, I'm sorry, but I would be very excited about that offensive line. However, and I'm going to quote Bob, but I don't want to get it wrong. In our chat, Bob had like the perfect saying in this situation. So his response at one point was, you got two Pro Bowl guards. Again, I'll say Pro Bowl is very loosely used here with Jonah Jackson. But Joe Thuney is an all-pro guard. An all-pro guard, okay? But no solutions to the problem yet. And here's why I agree with him. We still need to see the Bears bring in young talent to develop for this offensive line. To really build this team up, you need to build it through the draft, and we need to see what they can do by bringing in, whether it's a guard in the draft, whether it's a tackle in the draft. They need to bring in someone, maybe two people that they can grow and develop, right? So will it be a Donovan Jackson? Will it be a Tyler Booker? Will it be a Gray Zabel? There's a lot of these tackles that unfortunately for them have 33.5-inch arms. For example, Josh Connerly, I thought was going to be longer. I thought he had the highest ceiling for me in this draft class. It wasn't my highest tackle, but I thought he had the highest ceiling to be the best left tackle in this draft class. Seeing that he had 33.5-inch arms, I can't think that that's going to happen anymore. 34 inches ideal for your left side. You do have a few tackles in the league that typically play on the right side that are at that 33.5, 33 3/4 range. And there's some really good ones, but I have a hard time projecting some of these guys out to be elite left tackles without that arm length. Armand Membo is another one people are saying. He had a great combine. I don't see him as a left tackle. Some people are saying he's versatile. He didn't play left tackle at all in college. I don't like my guys switching from right to left as far as tackles go. If you're a guard, I feel like you can switch interiorly coming from college to the pros, but it takes a little time to even learn that and develop. There's some names, right? The kid out of Arizona State or Arizona. I can never say his name. Another guy who's going to project could be a right tackle or a guard. There's some options. There's definitely some options. Okay. Emory Jones, I think, might be moving up my board a little bit because he actually has that length, and he was in a tier, and I think I'm going to have to move him up within my tier. Still be in the same tier because it doesn't change the talent. It doesn't change the film, right? But I think he's going to bump up a little bit within that same tier for me. Anyway, the Bears need to develop talent. Now, another thing that I saw on social media, and I want to address this. Let's get to the Jonah Jackson part of this really quick. Okay? Why go out and get Jonah Jackson, trade a 6th-round pick for him, pay him $17.5 million this year, 17 potentially another $17 million next year, when you could have signed Teven Jenkins for less? And Teven Jenkins is a better guard, right? Go look at those Pro Football Focus rankings. He is better than Jonah Jackson. Let me preface this with, I am not a proponent for Pro Football Focus grades. I just am not. They're very subjective. I absolutely love Pro Football Focus for all of their stat accumulation, though. Okay? Their stat accumulation, their like next-gen type stats that they develop, fantastic things. I just have a problem with grades because I've seen too many times where guys who are just playing lights out football for most of the season, and yet their grades are just not lining up. I feel like teams are given lower grades for certain players. Roquan Smith is a great example. Go look at Roquan Smith's Pro Football Focus grades before he moved to Baltimore, and then look at what those grades look like once he got to Baltimore. It makes zero sense. Okay? Makes zero sense. So I'm not a big grade proponent. So I'm not going to try to sit here and argue those grades. I will say that I think Teven Jenkins is a better pass blocker. I think Teven Jenkins is a better run blocker than Jonah Jackson. However, let's look at the numbers. And here's the other thing that I keep hearing, right? Jonah Jackson, he's injured even more than Teven Jenkins. Injured even more than Teven Jenkins. Is he? Let's look at the numbers. All right. Jonah Jackson is a year older than Teven Jenkins, like a year and a month older. Okay? Jonah Jackson was drafted in the 3rd round, Teven Jenkins in the 2nd round. Last 4 years, they have played the same number of games. Jonah Jackson has started 45 to Teven Jenkins 38. Jonah Jackson has seen more snaps, obviously, since he was a starter for more games. In those 4 years, they both have only allowed 11 sacks. Okay? Pressures 83 to 40. I know that number looks bad for Jonah Jackson. Penalties 22 to 18. Those are pretty comparable. Now, let's look at it from a per snap standpoint, though. Okay? So those 2,959 snaps with 11 sacks allowed, that's roughly 1 sack for every 269 snaps for Jonah Jackson. In comparison, Teven Jenkins is giving up roughly 1 sack for every 201 snaps. So look, Jonah Jackson is slightly better in that area. Okay? These numbers are wrong. Ignore these numbers. Goodness. I changed it on my outline. I forgot to change the image. So the pressures are actually 65 for Jonah Jackson, which is 1 hurry for every 36 snaps. Teven Jenkins' numbers are correct at 40, so that's 1 for every 55. So again, slightly better in Jonah Jackson's favor. And then the penalties is actually 17 for Jackson over the last 4 years, which is 1 penalty for every 135 snaps. And the 18 is correct for Jenkins. That's 1 penalty every 22 snaps. Okay, there was an issue with the Pro Football Focus site that it sorted it out of order for years. I think I accidentally clicked one of the stats and it put it in a different order, and I didn't notice it. Forgot to change the damn image. So ignore the image, but those are the numbers. Now I will say, but wait, because this is what I saw. Everyone online was comparing it to every 3 years. So I have every 3 years as well. So for the last 3 years, Jackson has only started 29 games. Only played in 29 games. Teven Jenkins, 39 games that he played in. So 10 more games in the last 3 years. Jonah Jackson is injured more, right? Wait. Teven Jenkins only started 36 of those, by the way. Snaps. 2,045 snaps for Teven Jenkins with 10 more games that he played in versus 1,922 snaps for Jonah Jackson. So it's very, very close, seeing that they had a 10-year difference. Okay? Now, sacks. Only 2 sacks. Two sacks that Jonah Jackson has given up in the last 3 years. Teven Jenkins has given up 9. So that's 1 snap for every 961 snaps for Jonah Jackson, compared to 1 for every 227 for Teven Jenkins. Okay? Hurries, pressures, you got 43 for Jonah Jackson to 33 for Teven Jenkins. Again, slightly in Jonah Jackson's favor. 1 for every 45 snaps to 1 for every 62 snaps. No, I take that back. That's in Teven Jenkins' favor. Penalties, 9 for Jonah Jackson to 11 for Teven Jenkins. So that one is slightly in Jonah Jackson's favor. But the sacks are majority. Yeah, can't talk tonight. In Jonah Jackson's favor. Okay? So for those of you who want Teven Jenkins, look, I love Teven Jenkins. The guy sees the field, and you guys, we have a lot of box score watchers, right? You go to like Pro Football Reference and they see the number of games. Oh, Teven Jenkins has played in 10 more games. Well, how many times does he start a game and get hurt within the first, second quarter, right? And then he's done. I applaud him for trying to fight and come back. What it tells me is that the Chicago Bears have horrible depth, that they have to put him back out there at 80, 70% instead of having the backup play at 100. So, look, this is a huge upgrade. I am not ready, though, and I agree with Bob. I am not ready to applaud Ryan Poles yet. I like where they're going. This is a general manager who saw a problem with the offensive line. Ben Johnson comes in. Hey, who do you like? What should we go get? The guard market isn't great without Trey Smith. Okay? Probably couldn't work out a trade deal. I guarantee you if they traded for Joe Thuney, I guarantee you that they were trying to also get Trey Smith. Probably didn't work out. Thuney ended up being the backup option. Okay? Jonah Jackson. Hey, I like Jonah Jackson. He played for me in Detroit. Let's see what we can get. We hear that, the Rams are probably going to cut him. Look, why would you give up a 6th-round pick for a guy who's going to get cut and now have to pay him $17.5 million this year? Well, because other teams were interested. So you got to use that 6th-round pick in order to get that guy. Guarantee he's on your roster. Now, would he have probably come to Chicago because of the Ben Johnson connection? Probably. Not necessarily, though. Money talks. So here we go. You have two guys who are an upgrade. Jonah Jackson, I just told you, is an upgrade over Teven Jenkins. Very close, but he's an upgrade. I just totally proved, and I don't even have to prove it. You just have to say Joe Thuney's name, right? Best, I'm not a big fan of pass block win rate because it's like 2.5 seconds, and I don't think that's ridiculous. I think it's a little ridiculous, but 2.5 seconds pass block win rate for the NFL, right? Led the league 2 years in a row. Okay. Joe Thuney is an all-pro. Probably not quite an all-pro now, but still a Pro Bowl guard. That's a huge upgrade over Nate Davis. It's a huge upgrade over Matt Pryor. It's a huge upgrade for every other person that you put on that line, except for maybe Bill Murray, who, by the way, is coming back. They tendered him as a restricted free agent. Okay, so he'll be back. Excited about that. I can't imagine anyone's going to go out there and tender him an offer. I think he's going to make good depth as a backup. Plus, I mean, obviously the comedy will be fantastic, right? Now, you got to figure out the center position. Or do you bring in Kevin Zeitler and you see how well Jonah Jackson can play at center, right? The only way that I'm going to be excited about this, though, is if, like I said, they go out and draft young talent, develop them. That's what I want to see. Have these guys here 2, maybe 3 years. Bring in. And look, you can't waste a 2nd-round pick on a guy who's going to be. Do you want this team to continue to build and be great? Maybe it's possible that you have a rookie outplay Jonah Jackson. I'd be okay with that. Then you let him walk next year. Then you got your left guard for the next 4 or 5 years. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see this become a panic situation. I want them to get best player available. I don't want them to necessarily draft for need. Okay? What this also does And Justin and Bob and I have stuff in the works, but what this also does is open up the door for your draft. You have more options. You didn't give up much draft capital. You gave up a future 4th. You gave up a 6th round pick. You still have a 1st, 2 seconds, and a 3rd, all within the top 100 picks this year. You could move picks and get more picks. You could move picks, get less picks, but move up and get better talent. The options are almost endless. What do you want to see the Bears do? Now that they have 2 legit guards on this team, what do you want to see the Bears do with the rest of free agency? Free agency is coming up. Leave a comment. Who are some of the guys you think they should target now? I think Drew Dahlman's off the market. He's not going to be in the picture. He's just going to cost way too much. So what do you want to see them do at center? Do you want to see them get a right guard like Zeitler, who also has experience in this offense? Plug him in for a year or 2? Or do you want to just have Jackson play right guard and go out and find a center? Let us know in the comments. Do you think this opens the door for any more trades? Are the trades done? It seems like Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson know what they want to do, and they're being aggressive. Let us know in the comments. I'd love to continue this conversation. I don't really think there's much else to talk about, but I applaud the Chicago Bears. Let's hear it. We'll toast them. I haven't been able to drink my drink because I'm the only one here. Usually when Bob and Justin are here, I can drink in between talking. Cheers, Ryan Poles. I applaud you for the initial move. Just don't make it the only move when it comes to the offensive line. What are they going to do at defensive line? Does this mean they're going to attack the defensive line in the draft? Will they not go after a Chase Young, a Josh Sweat, Khalil Mack in free agency? Is Marcus Davenport going to be your big defensive end signing? Are they now? I feel like they're also now out of the market for, we had Javon Holland as our safety added to this roster while also cutting Kevin Byard. That's probably not going to happen now. I wouldn't be surprised if Byard stays. It opens the possibility of a safety in the draft, though. Higher. Can someone go get me my Xavier Watts? Because I love that kid. Okay? Go get me Xavier Watts. I love that kid. You can probably get him in the 2nd, and if not, maybe you just move up into the bottom of the 1st. There's a lot of possibilities. We're going to keep these conversations going. A lot of free agency talk coming on the next couple of weeks. A lot of draft talk coming in the next couple of weeks. We're going to talk a couple trade rumors that are still out there. Okay? Some with the draft, some with players. That's a little bit of a tease, as they call it in the radio industry, right? All right, for now, I got nothing else. Bear down, claws up. Enjoy the rest of your week, everybody.